Hello and welcome to the Our Prenup Lawyer podcast, where you and I get to learn more about prenups as I interview professionals from the fields of family law, couples counseling, and wealth management. I'm your host, Libby Garabedian. Let's get started. The information provided in this podcast is prepared by Our Prenup Lawyer for informational purposes only and does not constitute legal advice. The information is not intended to create an attorney-client relationship. This is not legal advice or a substitute for obtaining legal advice from an attorney. A person listening or watching should not rely upon it in any manner without engaging professional counsel. The podcast is intended to communicate general information and, because recorded, may not be current. On this episode of the Our Prenup Lawyer podcast, I'm joined by Aly Bullock. Aly is a licensed marriage and family therapist and the founder of the popular social media account Relationships with Aly. With years of experience in therapy room and thousands of couples supported through her courses, talks, and viral content, Aly has a rare gift for making hard conversations feel approachable. She's especially known for helping partners bring more honesty, play, and pleasure into their sex lives without falling into cliches or one-size-fits-all advice. Her work is grounded in science, shaped by real-life dynamics, and always focused on helping couples not just survive, but actually enjoy each other again. As the head of relationships at Paired, the leading relationship app for couples with over 4 million users globally, Aly provides relatable, expert advice to millions each month. Aly is a mom of 3 and proud wife to her husband, Sean. Welcome, Aly.
Thanks so much for having me, Libby. I'm excited to be here.
Great. Let's hop right in. Let's first talk about the Paired app.
Let's talk about it. Cool.
Yeah. Tell me about it. How did this idea come to life? And you have so many users. It's a great resource. What should people know about it?
Yeah, so the Paired app is what we call a couples app. Everyone knows what a dating app is. And then what do you use when you're in a relationship, right? You use a couples app. And so this is a space for couples to connect daily through questions, quizzes, games, learn about each other, have fun together, and also learn about the relationship. And so the app takes 2 minutes a day. You each answer a question or a game. You can't see the other person's answer until you have answered. And after doing some research, we found that a huge percentage of couples, the majority of couples, said that their connection was better and their communication was better after using the app. So I came on about a year ago as head of relationships to help guide the expert content in there. And it's been such a joy to, help couples have like a really accessible, affordable way to stay connected and have fun.
That's amazing. I love the setup. I love the way it's keeping couples honest, and there's not this one relying on the other to do all the heavy lifting through the app. You both have to commit to it 100%.
Exactly. Yes. It's like, if you want to get the experience, both of you have got to take those 2 minutes. And we spend 2 minutes on our New York Times crossword. We spend 2 minutes on our Wordle, our weather app. Like, why can't we spend 2 minutes on our relationship?
Exactly. I love it. So how did you get started as a marriage and family therapist?
So I went back to grad school back in 2019 after being a school teacher. And I saw that, the kids, even if they were super, super smart, if they had struggles at home, relationship struggles with their parents, they were going to struggle in school most of the time. And so it really got me thinking about where the root of a lot of these issues, societal issues are. And a lot of it happens in the home, happens with your childhood, happens with the dynamics. So I went back for a master's in marriage and family therapy. And I realized over time that I just really, really loved and gravitated towards working with couples and those types of relationships.
That's amazing. That's such an interesting career shift you had, and to have that perspective to identify something that was going on and want to, make a change in your own life to help others.
Totally. And there's another piece to it too. I took a lot of classes in college in my undergraduate degree in a family studies minor. So I was taking things like family finance or parenting or relationship classes. And after every class, I would think, this is the stuff that matters. Like, this is the stuff I'm going to use every day of my life. And so that was, in the back of my mind when I went back to grad school.
That's wonderful. I love that you always had this passion, and that you were building that foundation already.
Yes, totally.
So let's move into couples and talking about relationships here. So what are some common complaints people come to you with about their relationships?
Oh my gosh. So many different complaints. A big one is my partner doesn't put in as much effort as I put in. That's a huge, huge complaint. People feel like they are the one carrying the mental load or initiating relationship care and that their partner's kind of just along for the ride. Another one is, my partner just doesn't get me. They don't listen to me. They just get defensive all the time. We can't communicate. I would say the major issue that people come in with is a breakdown of communication.
Mm-hmm. So when they're coming to you with all these them things, how do you turn it around to have them not only look at themselves, but then work collaboratively? So it's a team effort and not just a he said, she said.
Totally. I really try and help them zoom out and think about their relationship patterns as if they were dancing.
Okay.
A dance, think about the tango, think about a ballroom dance, right? It has a certain set of steps. And oftentimes in relationships, you each are following a certain pattern, a certain set of steps, and you get so used to that dance that it feels so second nature. It's really easy to feel like you're not even contributing at all. It just happens so naturally. When you zoom out and think, oh, really, we're both actually here. We're both contributing to this pattern. We're both dancing these same steps. It's easier to remember, you know what? I do have to take accountability for my part in this because, no one's fighting by themselves. They're fighting with someone else. And that means you're both contributing to the dynamic.
Right. I like that. I like that metaphor you use. It's you're getting them out of this rhythm that's, like you said, that they're so used to, it's familiar, they're on autopilot sometimes in that. How do personality traits and past relationship dynamics affect a person's ability to have a successful relationship or in their current long-term relationship? How does that impact the longevity of it?
That's a great question. And all of us come to a relationship with history, right? We are kind of I hate the word baggage because it sounds so negative, but we do bring baggage or we do bring stories and experiences that have shaped who we are. And one thing that happens with couples often is that the person in that relationship will repeat deep familial patterns, even unhealthy ones, because those patterns feel safe or predictable to them. So, for example, if I was used to a family environment at home where there was a lot of conflict and there was a lot of people yelling their opinion at me, even if it wasn't hostile, if just people were loud and outspoken and interrupted and shared what they thought, then in a moment when things are quiet and calm, I'm almost going to feel weirded out. It's going to feel so unfamiliar to me. So then when I go into my long-term relationship and my partner is just so chill, I might subconsciously want to bring up the energy. I might want to start yelling my opinion, sharing things because that feels safer to me. That feels more predictable because that's what I'm used to. And so that's kind of how past relationships can impact present ones. But you're absolutely right that personality traits also impact long-term relationship success. And I think the number one personality trait that you could wish for in your partner would be flexibility, because relationships require, some give and take. And if you are a very rigid person, it's very difficult to be in relationship with you. So flexibility is a really important thing to develop.
Yeah, how do personality traits and, past circumstances or experiences affect, I guess, what we'd call the 4 common attachment styles in relationships?
Yeah, so we've got attachment styles, and the 4 main ones are secure, which is what we're all striving for. So you're comfortable with closeness and independence in the relationship. And a lot of times someone who is securely attached had a really positive childhood relationship with their caregivers or with their friends, where I know I can trust you and you know you can trust me, and we kind of work together. Then you have an anxious attachment, and this is someone who craves reassurance and fears abandonment. And this might stem from in your childhood, you felt like no one really listened to you, or you felt like when you got too emotional, people said you were too much. Your parents walked away and left you crying. Then we have avoidant, and an avoidant type really values their independence and can tend to struggle with vulnerability. And, this can stem from all sorts of reasons. Maybe it was unsafe to share your emotions when you were growing up. Emotions were looked at as weak. Or same thing, when you did share, someone abandoned you and you felt like, you know what, I'm not going to do that anymore. I'm going to protect myself. And then finally, you have disorganized attachment, which is a mix of both anxious and avoidant. And this is someone who wants that closeness, but also fears it at the same time. And there are all sorts of reasons for this, but how that shows up in your adult relationship is you're often saying you want one thing, but then doing the opposite. And your partner is just really confused and doesn't know how to meet your needs.
Right. So how then do you go about facilitating communication or these hard to have conversations with couples, keeping in mind that they have all these different things going on in the background that are affecting how they're going to approach conversations?
The number one thing you must do first is establish safety. And that's going to look different for every individual. So you need to sit down as a couple and discuss what boundaries can we set as a unit to help both of us feel safe. For example, if I'm someone who is more avoidant, I might need to know that I'm allowed to take a break from the conversation if I feel overwhelmed. And if I'm an anxious person, I might need to know that if you're going to take a break, you promise that you'll come back after 20 minutes. So establishing boundaries that help you both remember, I am able to be myself while also prioritizing our connection. And that's going to generate safety. And once you have safety, then you can have conversations about these topics.
So what is a typical plan, or let me think of the right way to phrase this. What does the typical approach look like for couples within sessions once you establish safety and you go forward to looking at their goals? What does your game plan look like for them usually?
Typically, you want to establish safety, and then you want to help couples zoom out, because oftentimes they come to a session really focused on the topic or the issue that they're fighting about. Maybe it's a prenup, maybe it's something else, maybe it's kids or pregnancy, whatever. They think it's the topic that's the issue. But when you really zoom out, I teach them that the thing that's more important than the content is the process. So the content is what you're fighting about. The process is how you're communicating about it. And so what I do with them is I help them identify their pattern. Who approaches first, who makes a passive aggressive comment, who runs away, who blah, blah, blah. And once they can see that pattern, they're able to apply that actually to almost every topic that they argue about, because the pattern typically looks the same. And so instead of trying to resolve an issue, we try and resolve a pattern of communication, often starting with triggers, what triggers the pattern in the first place. And by the end of it, we've really helped the couples come to an understanding of a deep sense of alignment. Who do I want to be as a partner? How can I show that through my words and actions, etc.?
What does relationship alignment look for many people?
For a lot of people, alignment is getting to the point where I act as the partner that I want to be, regardless of how you're acting.
Okay.
So sometimes when you're in a relationship, you act a certain way because you feel like it's justified because your partner did something worse.
Oh.
They've hurt me. And so I'm going to do this, or I'm going to yell, or I'm going to whatever. And when you're really aligned, you're in a spot where you think, you know what, regardless of what they're doing, I feel confident that I'm acting from my values, and that I'm able to stay true to the partner that I want to be, even under pressure. And that takes a lot of regulation, takes a lot of practice, but that is the goal for most people.
How do you facilitate that marriage and relationship reconciliation when both people are not on the same page, and maybe only one of them is interested in couples therapy or feels like that's the right choice for them?
The first step for these couples is to have gone a year earlier to therapy, right? Well, I really wish more couples would go at the very beginning of these issues, because therapy is much more effective the sooner you go. The
Mhm.
longer you wait, it becomes much less effective. It's just really harder to get out of those deep-rooted issues. But if you do have a partnership where you're really, really struggling, and one of you wants to go and the other doesn't, try it. See if you can get them to come. Oftentimes, once they make a bond with the therapist, they will feel more motivated. We call it in the therapy world, there are customers, people who really want to change, and then there are very passive participants who don't actually want to be there. They're only there because their partner dragged them there. And my job as a therapist is to really try and connect with that person, help them feel an emotional connection so that they can over time move into that customer role where they're really bought in. So I would say to these couples, even if your partner's hesitant, try it anyway, see if it can help. And sometimes the relationship should end. That's
Mhm.
okay. That's a part of life. And oftentimes, when you're at that point, yes, you grieve the relationship and you grieve the end of this, but it's the start of something much healthier afterwards.
So how do you help couples through relationship transitions, if it's divorce or separation, to move forward and make the right changes as individuals?
It's a good question. And it's honestly some of my favorite work to do with couples, because there's something really beautiful about this moment of acceptance. I finally accept that I have done what I can do, and it's not enough this time. That doesn't mean I'm a failure. That doesn't mean I'm a bad person. So oftentimes we start with the stigma of divorce. If this is a married couple, tell me what you were taught about divorce. Tell me what judgments you've made about divorced people. Tell me what this word means to you, and really deconstruct that and spend time helping them neutralize the word, and make it so it's not this source of shame for them. And then we move into, if they're still coming together, like maybe if they have a child or something, how do we want to communicate? What kind of partners do we want to show up as, even if we're not romantically tied anymore? And normalizing that they are going to feel stressed, they are going to feel tense, they are going to feel angry, they're going to be going through the stages of grief during this process, but just kind of normalizing with that with them, and letting them know you're not doing anything wrong. And then once they've split and I'm either seeing them separately or I'm just seeing one of them now, really helping them walk through those stages of grief, and taking it slow, taking it day by day, reminding them, even if it was a year ago, that's still very recent. And it's okay if it takes time to heal and move forward.
So when you're working with individuals or people that were in a couple together, and you're helping them move forward with their relationship, do you ever help with establishing co-parenting plans or working in conjunction with family law experts to give insight or help them come up with a game plan for their future?
Yes, there have been a few instances when I've helped people create co-parenting plans. And I think the number one thing for those couples is to establish clear boundaries. Because when you have a shared history together, it can be really easy to blur the boundaries and say, oh, it's just this one time that we're going to, chat a little longer after this meeting, or that I'm going to share this detail with my friend about you. You really have to be intentional about the clear boundaries. If we've decided that you are going to pick up our kid on this day, we need to try as hard as we can for the first few months to really make that happen. Because if you are blurry or ambiguous at the beginning, it's going to be a lot harder to move on and create a good system later on. So boundaries are important for these couples, and also really trying to depersonalize the other person's behavior. So you might have had maybe a messy divorce and you see everything they're doing online or hear what they're saying to their friends. And you've got to learn how to depersonalize that and really think, you know what? They're allowed to feel what they feel. They're allowed to do what they do. That doesn't have to mean anything about me. And other people are going to think what they're going to think. I'm focused on my healing, my moving forward, and that's what's important right now.
So taking away, like you said, depersonalizing it, not making everything about an attack on you, but trying to,
Yes,
stay in your lane, focus on you, and be secure in what you're doing and knowing that the work you've put in is making progress.
totally. Exactly.
So you mentioned social media. How have you seen social media have an impact on people's relationship health, whether it's people posting about their own relationship and that having adverse effects, or just seeing quote unquote perfect couples on Instagram?
Oh my gosh, there are so many ways. I mean, I share a lot of relationship content on parents' social media page, on my social media page, and I very intentionally try and show realistic scenarios. You know, real couples, typical couples have fights, have arguments, say the wrong thing. And I think it's important to show people that and then also show them ways that they can improve it
Mhm.
rather than just a highlight reel of, oh my gosh, I love my husband so much. Here's how perfect he is, et cetera, et cetera. Because I have seen that there are partnerships where one person is pretty into social media and they start to feel jealous. Like, oh, why doesn't my partner do this? Why doesn't my partner get me 12 bouquets of roses on Valentine's Day? And you start to have unrealistic expectations. On the flip side, there's also just a lot of issues with boundaries. You know, there's a lot of people who follow sexy accounts and like these pictures when their partner doesn't feel comfortable with that. And that creates a lot of tension. And so couples need to be more upfront about their boundaries, what they're comfortable with, and just have open communication about social media because it can be very problematic.
How can people be upfront with their boundaries? And because those are obviously difficult conversations to have, because sometimes people don't want to be confrontational or seem like they're asking too much. But obviously
Mhm.
it's not a big ask.
It's not. And I makes me so mad when people are like, think that it's weird that their partner wouldn't want them to, you know, like there's thirst trap pics and stuff. Like it's a totally reasonable request. Um, but I really encourage them to start with I statements and not attack their partner's character. So let's say I have a partner who is doing some stuff online that I don't feel comfortable with, makes me feel a little bit insecure in our bond. Instead of saying, you don't care about me, you don't respect me, which are very much judgmental statements about their character, those are criticisms. I'm going to start with, hey, I feel insecure when I see this because it makes me question this. Or I start to tell myself a story that you mean XYZ when you do this. Is that true? Is it not? So, really sticking with how it's impacting me, how I'm feeling, expressing that to them. And then hopefully they'll feel less defensive, more willing to listen so that you can talk about, you know, some changes you could both make to feel more comfortable.
Right. I love that. So it's already setting a good tone where you can
Mhm.
have the conversation where defenses aren't high.
Yes, exactly.
So what advice would you give to engaged couples who are thinking about this big relationship milestone, if they're getting married? Um, what advice would you give them on how to have a healthy long-term marriage?
Communication is everything. And so if you are really wanting to set a good foundation for your relationship, do some work to understand your communication style. Do you tend to be more passive? Do you tend to be kind of a bulldozer? Do you tend to get defensive? Do some work on yourself and really understand what you bring into the communication patterns so that instead of, you know, having a hiccup in the relationship and immediately blaming your partner, you're able to be self-aware and identify, you know what? I think this is my passive aggression coming out and just being able to own that. So understanding your communication style is one thing. I also really suggest that new couples make a habit of relationship knowledge or relationship education. So whether that is therapy or coaching if they want it, or maybe it's every 2 months they do a self-help book club and read a relationship book together, establishing some sort of pattern where they're both involved and it shows, oh, both of us care about improvement in this area. And then if you start that from the beginning, it's much easier to continue that later on and apply what you've learned.
So with establishing these patterns and habits, what kind of, with the new year right around the corner, what can couples do to kind of put goals in place for themselves to carry that out?
A great question. I always suggest that couples set no more than 3 goals. And I know that maybe doesn't sound like a lot, but if you set too many, you won't accomplish any. And so what I would have couples do for the new year is I would have them sit down and do a values exercise. You can Google a values exercise and find there's a million on there. And essentially, you're going to look through this list of values and choose 5 values for your relationship. 5 things that you both feel very strongly about. And then you're going to look at those and discuss together based on these 5 values. What are 1, 2, maybe 3 goals we want to set to help us live out these values as a couple? Because when you frame your goals around your values rather than a specific thing happening, those goals are going to impact your whole relationship, not just one aspect of it.
I love that. I love how it's manageable and it's looking at the relationship as a team effort and what you both want to see come out of it.
Exactly.
So as we're wrapping up, how can listeners reach you if they're interested in connecting?
Amazing. Okay, so first thing, check out the show notes. I've dropped a link for 25% off the premium membership, which is really fun, for a year-long subscription. And you can find me in there because I have all sorts of expert tips and journeys and questions and all sorts of stuff in there. You can also find me on Instagram in 2 places, either at Paired App or at Relationships with Aly. And on both of those, I post a lot of video content that just gives you little snippets, little tidbits of advice and tips that you can apply on the day-to-day. And then also paired.com, where you can read blog posts about relationships and you can check out different resources.
Awesome. I love it. Thank you so much, Aly, for being on the episode today.
Yes, thank you. I hope you have an awesome day. Thanks for having me.
Of course. That's our show, folks. Thank you for listening to Our Prenup Lawyer. Make sure to like and subscribe, and feel free to drop a comment below. Follow us on Instagram at Our Prenup Lawyer, and listen to us on Spotify, iHeart, Apple Podcasts, Audible, and watch us on YouTube. See you guys next time.